Hi guys, and welcome back to another upper body focused mobility class. So in today's class we're going to be focusing on shoulder external rotation, specifically flexion combined with adduction or abduction. Okay, so this very much mimics the front rack position that we have in the front squat or Olympic weightlifting as well. Right, now in terms of what you're going to need for today, you're going to need a chair or box or bench, something which you can sit comfortably on and also feel quite well supported. Then you're going to need a stick, something like what I have, which is not too heavy. Alright, and lastly, optional are 2 tennis balls, and if you don't have tennis balls today, you can do the same exercises making a fist. It's just for building more tension. So to begin with, what we're going to do is warm up with some upper body calves. So if you have access to a chair where you can almost hold on to the sides so that your shoulder blades are pulled down slightly. So when I sit upright in this position now, holding on to the bottom of my chair or seat, I feel the shoulder blades are pulled down. We are going to go through our neck calves in this position, holding that setup. What this is going to do is going to stop the shoulder blades from hiking up, and this is generally something I find quite common when going through neck calves with a lot of people I work through, is that when we go through certain parts of the movement, the shoulder blade wants to hike up to come along for the ride. So this will just prevent that from happening, and it will probably feel slightly different to other variations I've used. Alright, so holding on, breath in. Back that ear down, and now build tension throughout the body. Think 30 to 40% tension, and then begin by tucking the chin towards the chest. Then from there, I rotate to the side, so I turn to look to the side as best as I can. And then I side bend by dropping the ear down behind the shoulder. And then I extend back, looking behind, and I rotate across, going around, wrapping around back to that tucked starting position, and then change direction. As you're going through the movement, I want you to bring your focus to finding a slow and controlled pace throughout. Moving slow is like thinking slow. It's more of a deliberate and effortful way of engaging with our bodies and tuning into the sensations we feel as we go through the movements. So aim to move slow so that you can pay attention to everything that you're feeling as you go through those movements. Meanwhile, also trying to expand the range of motion while minimizing any compensation coming from the rest of the body. So in this position, we're thinking neck below. We want to keep as still as possible and finish up on that rep there. Good. Now for the rest of the spine, we are going to cross the arms, and from here is the same movement pattern. So we're going to segmentally flex as best as we can. Then once we've finished from flexion, we're going to rotate to the side, and then side bend, and then segmentally extend back as best as you can. And now try to hold on to that extension as you slowly rotate across, bring yourself around, wrapping around, back into that flex position again, and then change direction. Excellent. In this position, we're trying to do our best to keep the lower portion of the body still. So if you've noticed, you feel, especially as you're side bending, maybe the pelvis starts to hike up, try not to let that happen. Try to feel yourself balanced when you're seated. Try not to shift the pelvis from one side to the other, but try to get all the movement happening from above with the spine. Meanwhile, just checking in, making sure you've got tension, more so in the lower body with this particular movement. And finish up on that rep. Now for scapular cars, I'm going to ask you to put your hands on your knees like this. The movement pattern is going to be to draw a circular movement with our shoulder blades. Okay, so the hands can move up and down, but what we don't want is that the arms are falling off by the side of falling in as we go through this movement, or we have the elbows bending. So follow along with me on this one. You're going to elevate the shoulder blades, so you're going to lift them up, and then you're going to pull them back, and then slide them down. And then from there you slide them forwards, and repeat that circular movement. So up, back, down, and forwards, and keep that going. As I said before, just pay attention. Try not to let your hands slide down the side of the leg or on the inside. Try not to let the elbows bend, and change direction. Good, and also other compensations will be head moving forwards or backwards, movement coming from the spine. We want to try and minimize this as best as we can. And finish up on that rep there. Okay, moving on to glenohumeral cars. Now this is today's focus of the class. So the movement we're going to be going through now is what I want you to try and assess on how things feel. So I remind you, bring your attention back to moving slow in order that you can tune into those sensations as you go through the movements. Alright, so following, we're going to start in this position here. What I've done is I've externally rotated the shoulder so the palms face forwards, and then I'm going to sweep my arm across. As I sweep across, I'm lifting it into my overhead position, and then I'll pause when I get to my end range for the overhead position, internally rotate the shoulder, send the arm back, continuing to internally rotate the shoulder. And then I'll reverse that movement. So I extend back, lifting the arm up, and I'll hit a blocking point where I can't lift up anymore. I unwind, rotate the other way to bring the arm back into the overhead position, externally rotate the shoulder, sweeping across again the midline, back to the start. Good, so now pay attention to this first portion of the movement. How does it feel as you're lifting your arm into the overhead position? How does it feel as you hold this overhead position and you begin to internally rotate the shoulder and send the arm back, continuing to internally rotate the shoulder? How does all of that feel? Are there any areas in the movement that maybe you feel a little weaker, a little tighter, a little bit more restrictive? That could probably be felt by a drop in control, drop in strength, an increase in effort. Maybe you noticed in certain areas that there's a bit of a jamming sensation or discomfort or difficulty with the transitions. And finish up on that rep there. Switching sides. I want you to do the same thing. Tune into the sensations, especially this first portion of the movement. And then as you're going through it, just make a mental note. We'll revisit our glenohumeral cars at the end of class to just see how the overall movement feels. Meanwhile, as you're going through the movement, I also just want you to check in with the rest of the body. Make sure that you're not compensating from other areas. Common compensations will be elbow bending, moving of the head, rotating of the torso. Check in, how you're keeping good body tension. And finish up on that rep there. For the elbows, we're going to have the arms by our side, okay? Palms face forwards. I'm going to imagine the air I'm moving through is denser, so I'm having to create more tension to push through that dent here. begin by flexing the elbow. So I'm closing the elbow joint as best as I can. Then I pronate, so our palms face forwards. And then from there I'm going to extend. So I'm opening up the elbow joint again. From the bottom, supinate, palms face forwards. Then flex, pushing through that density, keeping tension. Pronate at the top, extends, and then we'll reverse it from here. So keeping that position, flex, rotate at the top, extends, rotate at the bottom, flex, rotate at the top, and extends. Good. For the wrists, we're going to have the arms by the side with the elbows slightly bent. Okay, fingers are straight. We're going to draw a circular movement with the wrists. I want you to go for 3 to 4 reps in each direction. Focus point is to try not to let the fingers curl as you're going through this movement. So we don't want this to happen. Alright, so try to keep the fingers as straight as possible throughout. Start in one direction, complete your 3 to 4 reps, and then change direction. If you find yourself compensating, i.e. with the fingers bending, make the wrist movement a little smaller. Also pay attention to not moving from the elbows or the shoulder. Excellent. Okay guys, so now we're going to move on to our shoulder series for external rotation. So for this you're going to need a stick. And how we're going to begin with this setup is I'm going to hold the stick on its lower end, then I'll bend the elbow. And with the other hand, take hold of the stick underneath. Now from here, essentially to find the stretch, what I want to do is externally rotate the shoulder by lifting the stick up with the bottom arm. So I'm doing this movement to bring the stick or this hand up towards the ceiling, and that movement there is what externally rotates my shoulder. Now there's a few variables you can play with when exploring this setup for yourself. One is how much that elbow bends. Right, some might find bending the elbow quite a bit works very well for them. You might find giving a little slack works better for you. Also where the stick rests behind the arm. So some might find having the stick further down the arm is comfortable, effective for the setup, and it works well for them. Others might find that's a little uncomfortable, but better further down, more under the armpits, over the shoulder blade sort of region. So those are two variables that you have to play a little bit with to see when exploring these variables, what gives you the best stretch sensation, but also finding that balance between what is comfortable and effective. And I say that just because we're going to be holding this position for a little bit. So I want comfort to be on the priority list as well. Now in that position, as I said earlier, it mimics the front rack position, but I'm going to say you can explore as well bringing the elbow in, okay, which is adduction, or bringing the elbow out, abduction. You can also play with the elbow height, various angles of flexion. With all of that, now start to explore and try to find an area, a line of tension, as you're going through it, where you have the best stretch sensation. If you're not too sure, just try to find a sort of medium point between all those areas where you feel you have a good stretch. And then I'm going to ask you to hold that position. So I've found my position now. Now what I can do in this position, it's not the most comfortable to hold for time. So then I can just rest the stick on my leg. For you, that might mean actually turning your upper body in relation to your lower body to find that setup where you can then rest the stick on the leg. Now you're holding that position that you have. I'll explain to you what we're going to do in a moment. We're going to perform two contractions, pails and rails. Pails will be to gently rotate into the stick this way, so internally rotate against the resistance of the stick. And then the rails will be the opposite. We're going to build both efforts up gently, just because there's quite a vulnerable area for many people. Alright, so you'll follow along with me on that, and what I ask for you today is you decide for yourself where you stop with the efforts, whether that's 40, 60, 80% as I build up. I would suggest if this is very new to you, then maybe 40 to 60% for the first session and see how you feel the next day before your repeat of the class and deciding whether you want to up the intensities. So, following now, what I want you to do is just take a good brace, so build tension in both arms and the upper body, and now take that tension down into your lower body. Good, maintaining that tension, you're now going to internally rotate against the resistance of the stick. So in that position, I'm trying to now do this. Nothing happens to move because I'm in a locked position. Just that 20%, see how that feels. If that feels good and it feels like a good stretch, then maybe build up to 40% and build up slowly. Good. Slowly ramping up to 60%, you deciding where you want to stop. 80%. And if you feel comfortable, best effort, and then try to hold this effort, hold this intensity. Try not to let it drop, try not to let it increase. Stay where you stopped for another 10 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Do not come out of position, but relax that contraction, and now try to do the opposite. So you're going to try to promote more external rotation. Okay, in reality, if you're probably at your end range, nothing should change, but you just want to feel the contraction of the outside shoulder muscle that will help achieve that movement. Good. Try to think about matching that effort with the effort you created on the pales contraction. So if it was 40%, try to hit 40%. If it was 60, try to hit 60, and so forth. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, soften. And now what I ask is you just try to go a little further into stretch. So that will mean just adjusting and externally rotating the shoulder a little bit more. And we're just going to return back to the breath. Slow breath in, slower breath out, and then slowly unwind from that. Good. Okay. We're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So once again, explore the setup. Alright, explore how much you bend that elbow, explore where you place that stick behind the shoulder, and then from there also begin to explore the stretch by moving the elbow up or down slightly, out or inwards, combined with external rotation. As I move around, I generally just hover, so I'll just externally rotate a little bit, come out of it. Go somewhere else, do the same. As you externally rotate the shoulder, it will bring you into that stretch that we're looking for. So you can use that tactic as well to try and figure out what area gives you the best line of tension to work from. And then once you've found it, you can maneuver your upper body to place yourself in a position where that stick can be better supported with the leg if possible. So once we've found that position, just holding, bringing your attention to diaphragmatic breathing, trying to keep as relaxed as possible. Holding just a little longer before we go into our pales and rails. Once again, build up slowly, even if you did get to quite a high effort on the other side. See how this side feels when you build up the efforts with the pales. Okay, breath in. Take a good abdominal brace. Spread tension into the upper body, into the lower body. And now pales contraction starting at 20%. So you are rotating inwards. Take it up slowly to 40%. Check in, see how that feels at 40. If you feel comfortable, go to 60. 80. best effort. Whichever effort we stopped at, we want to just try and maintain that effort, try not to let it drop, try not to let it go up. As you fatigue, it's going to want to drop. You want to try and keep that effort consistent. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Slowly relax that contraction and now match that contraction with the rails. Slowly getting to that contraction. So maybe in the space of 5 to 10 seconds you get to that rails contraction. Now we're holding for another 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly soften and try again just to get a little deeper into the passive stretch. And hold that position again. Slow breath in, slow breath out. And slowly come out of position. Right, we'll take a little break for a few seconds and then we are going to go back and repeat another set on each side. We're just going to get in position, take about 30 seconds to try and explore and find the stretch again, and then we're going to do one more round of pails and rails. Now that you've done a round of both sides, you have an idea of how it feels. It's up to you whether for this second set you might want to maybe increase the intensity. If you actually found that maybe you put a bit too much, you might want to drop the intensity a little bit as well. What I will also say is that feel free for the second set to maybe try a different position. So explore a slightly different area and try training the position there. There's no right or wrong, and also as we open up certain areas in the shoulders, you might find it gives you more access to other areas. So the stretch can sometimes feel as if it's almost moved around, which is why I say when always setting up into the stretch, look for it and explore and try to find it by feel and then use that as your navigation tool. Okay, so in the position again, hovering around, trying to figure out where do I get a good stretch, and I'm going to use that as my setup. Okay. Holding for another 15 seconds, gives you a moment just to try and calm into the setup. One more deep breath in and out. Right, take a good deep breath in now. Good brace, spread tension throughout the body and begin the pails contraction starting at 20%. Ramping up to 40, 60, 80, and now best efforts. Again, try to keep that effort consistent, keeping tension in the rest of the body. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, rails contraction now, so trying to do the opposite. Try to make a good mind-muscle connection of what you're having to squeeze on the outside of the shoulder to create this movement of external rotation. Holding for another 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, soften. And now just try to guide the shoulder slightly deeper into the passive stretch once more. Return back to the breath. And slowly come out of it. And switching on to the other side now. Now, just trying to find that stretch. It is very much experimenting and working out what works best for you. There isn't really a right or wrong in some of what we do with this. Once again, if this is a very uncomfortable position, then think about finding what is more comfortable as a setup, and try to balance that with the effectiveness when you're creating the pails and rails. You want that we can try and create a good mind-muscle connection between what we're contracting when we perform our pails and rails as contractions. Right, taking a good brace, build tension. Now, pails contraction starting at 20%. Building up to 40. Taking up to 60. Decide where you want to stop. 80. Best effort. Stay with it. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction now. And match the pails contraction. Try and make that mind-muscle connection. Make sure you're keeping tension in the rest of the body. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Staying in position, just try to now soften and guide a little deeper into the stretch, and we'll hold for a few breaths. And slowly come out of position now. Now, the following exercise is an eccentric. So how this is going to work is my starting position is going to be from here. From here again, you have the freedom to kind of play with the variable of how much you're bending the elbow, where the elbow position is in terms of height in or out. Okay, but in essence, what I want is I'm starting with the arm slightly in. And with this, I'm going to create a contraction of internally rotating. Okay, so how that will look is from here, I would be actually starting my contraction of internally rotating. Okay, holding that contraction, I then go through that movement of externally rotating the shoulder. I want your starting position to begin here. See how that feels, somewhere in the middle. Okay. You want to control a variable of tension, so how much contraction or effort you put into trying to internally rotate will dictate how much force and how much stretch sensation that creates on what we then start stretching and moving. So start light in the effort. That might even be very light, like 20-30%. Hold that effort of internally rotating the shoulder, and then slowly externally rotate by manipulating the stick as I'm doing. And see how it feels as you get towards your end range, where you start to feel that resistance, and then reset. If that didn't feel too bad, so you might want to do another rep in that position with a little bit more tension. Okay, how we're going to do this is we're going to perform 5 reps. We're going to do 2 sets on each side. So what I would suggest is, for each set, stick to more or less the same position for the 5 reps. Make each rep roughly 5 to 7 seconds long, regardless of how much range you go through. And on that last rep, I want you to hold that position in the stretch for 10 seconds. So we'll start now. Set yourself up. Find a sort of setup where it was close to, again, what gave you a good stretch sensation. Try not to deviate too much inwards or outwards or up or down with the elbow to begin with for this set. Now, building tension throughout the body, build the pails contraction, as I said, start light, and now move the stick to externally rotate the shoulder and work to what feels safe and comfortable with you even if it's not near your end range. When you get to your end, reset. Keep the tension and then repeat. And when I get to my end, I relax that contraction, I reset effortlessly, and then I repeat. You might notice as I go through the movement, my elbow moves slightly, that's fine. What you're looking for is that you can try and feel the stretch throughout the movement, and you can kind of feel an increase in stretch along the shoulder joints. Then once you get to the 5th rep, hold that position. So now I'm getting to my 5th rep, I get to that end range, and I'm just going to hold into the stretch for 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Switch sides. Breath in, good brace, tension throughout the body, begin to contract the shoulder to internally rotate, and then move the stick to bring it into external rotation. Work to your tolerance, 5 to 7 seconds, reset. Remember, you don't have to look like me, you're trying to find a position that works best for you. Okay, so as you're going through this, if you feel the setup's not working, change a little bit something. On the second set, when we come back to the other side, we'll have the opportunity to explore a bit more. And on your 5th rep, hold that position. Hold the isometric effort for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly come out of it. So, jumping back onto the other side for the second set. Now I give you the opportunity, based on how that felt, you might want to increase the isometric effort to increase the intensity of the exercise. Also, you might want to choose a different setup, i.e. where the arm is moving. Okay. I'm also going to say that it's quite common, I found in class settings, that people get a lot of the stretch happening around the elbow joints. Okay, it's not that that's bad, but I want the focus to be more so on feeling the stretch sensation happening in the shoulder joint. So if you feel a lot in the elbow, not so much in the shoulder, then definitely try to maneuver your setup position, explore it so you can try and move that stretch more up into the shoulder if possible. Alright guys, let's get back onto the other side. Set yourselves up. Play a little bit. If you're familiar with the setup that worked best for you when we did the pails and rails with the last exercise, then that setup will probably be what works best for you with this now. And time begins now. So 5 controlled reps. Try to keep the tension throughout the whole movement. As you get to the end range, you will feel slightly weaker. You will probably feel it's harder to create that force. I ask you to try to do so. And then on the 5th rep, we hold for 10 seconds here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly come up. Same on the other side. Feel free to change the setup a little bit more this time. And then in future classes, based on what works for you, you'll have a better idea on what you need to do with your setups and how to get into it. Alright, build tension, good brace, and begin. Holding the 5th rep. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we can put the stick to the side. The next exercise is going to be an axial rotation. So with your chair, you're going to go down into a kneeling position, and I want to kind of bring my elbow up to that same height that we had working with a stick. So I'm going to lower myself down into this position, and what I want to try and do is get my arm, the tricep region, supported onto the bench. So I feel that the whole elbow region is supported onto the bench. From here, what we're going to do is internally rotate the shoulder as best as we can, and then we're going to externally rotate the shoulder as best as we can. This is going to be 5 reps, and then in each position we're going to hold for 3 seconds. So when we internally rotate to our end, we hold. If that means I get to make contact, I'm pushing into the box for that hold for 3 seconds. And when I externally rotate and I get to my end, I'm fighting for more for 3 seconds. Again, imagine the air you're moving through is dense. I'm not just moving fast from A to B, but I'm pushing through that dense air to get from A to B. This is going to be 1 set on each side. So set yourself up now. Okay. What I will say as well is we're trying to move the arm, so this arm independently from the shoulder joint, which is not necessarily going to happen. Both do move together, but we want to try and minimize excessive movement just coming from the shoulder blades both ways. So a bad rep would look like this. I'm making a movement happening just from more so shoulder blades. I'm compensating through the rest of the body. Try to keep the shoulder blade relatively still, but it will move, especially towards the end of the movements. What I ask you, trying to get the rotation coming from our arm bone independently from the shoulder joint. Okay guys, so set yourself up. If you have a tennis ball, take hold of it, take a good brace. If you don't have a tennis ball, squeeze a fist, take tension into the whole arm, into the rest of the body, and begin to internally rotate. When you get to your end, fight for more. 3, 2, 1. Externally rotate. You get to your end, fight for more. 3, 2, 1. Internally rotate, pushing through that dense here. 3, 2, 2. Externally rotate. 3, 2, 2. Internally rotate. 3, 2, 3. Externally rotate. 3, 2, 3. Internally rotate. 3, 2, 4. Externally rotate. 3, 2, 4. Internally rotate. 3, 2, 5. Externally rotate. 3, 2, 5. Good. Switch sides. Squeezing the tennis ball, building tension through that arm, spreading tension to the rest of the body. Begin by internally rotating. Fight for more. 3, 2, 1. Externally rotate. Fight for more. 3, 2, 1. Internally rotate. 3, 2, 2. Externally rotate. 3, 2, 2. Internally rotate. 3, 2, 3. externally rotate, 3, 2, 3, internally rotate, 3, 2, 4, externally rotate, 3, 2, 4, internally rotate, 3, 2, 5, last rep, externally rotate, 3, 2, 5, and take a little rest from there. Okay guys, we're now just going to retest our glenohumeral cars from what we did in the beginning. Now that we've warmed up a bit, we've trained, you can turn this more into training reps, okay? We're going to go just for time, just by the clock, so for 60 seconds per side. This is your opportunity to choose what effort you work at, or even just make this simply going through the movement to see how things feel. So follow along with me. I externally rotate the shoulder, and then I'm sweeping across in my overhead position, paying attention to how all of this feels, internally rotating the shoulder, sending the arm back. A lot of the areas we work today will generally help with our overhead position, but you might find it has also made certain other areas of this movement easier. This back portion maybe feels a little easier from what we've worked on, for example. Another 20 seconds. The mental notes that you made at the beginning, you want to revisit them. Finish up on that rep and then switch sides. So, were there any areas of that movement that you felt weaker, a little bit more tighter or restricted with the movements? That could have been noted by a drop in control, strength, sensation. Did you notice any areas where maybe your arm might feel even heavier, or you're having to contract harder to achieve the movements? How does that maybe feel now? More seconds. And finish up on that. Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's class.